Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello and welcome back to the Awaken Heart Podcast. It's been a minute since I've just sat down with the microphone and just talked directly to you. So I'm going to get you caught up in a little bit of what's happening in my world and what I see is happening in the world around us. And as I'm recording today, September 20th, we here in Portland have just got out of a really hazardous situation with our air quality. I mean, we had some of the worst wildfires that we've historically had. It's California, it's the whole western part of the country. And the fires are still burning, they're contained. There's been millions of acres destroyed. And the air quality, I lived in California for over 20 years, and there were always fires in California. I mean, I lived in the beach cities before, and the worst one happened about 2 years ago, where I was at home and my friend and I were just taking a walk at the beach. I lived in Marina Del Rey, and we saw a plume of smoke. We're like, wow, what is that? Like, is there a cloud? Is there a storm coming? And Malibu was on fire. And then the next day I was at the beach, and literally like from 1 minute to the next, it was like there was fog that rolled in, and the smoke was horrific, and I had to go home. But here, I have never experienced something like this. We had a lot of winds for 2 days before, and it reminded me of the dry winds of Santa Ana. And well, that fanned the fuel for the fires to start spreading. There was one day when I walked outside after work and it looked like Armageddon. I'm sure you've seen some of the images. There's one that's like hauntingly eerie where the whole city of San Francisco is bathed in red. As tragically beautiful as that was, it's what was happening here. I mean, it looked like Armageddon. Like there was just orange clouds everywhere. And luckily, I wasn't in one of the evacuation areas. Like where my work was, I think it was level 1, and it was just about to get to our area. I mean, in Clackamas County, they sent a lot of the county employees home. I'm tied to the mortgage industry, which is a blessing because like when the lockdowns happened, we were tied to the banks as a mortgage title company and escrow company. So we got the ability to work. But because we're tied to the banks, we're one of the last people that would go home. Well, the second day after I saw that Armageddon cloud, I thought someone was burning a candle in the office because our office was filling up with smoke. It was so bad. And the next day, and I left my windows open, not knowing that the air quality, when I left in the morning, it was moderate, and the air quality went quickly up to 400. Now, 10 is healthy. We were in the 400s for a week straight. So I was afraid to go to work. I didn't want to go outside. I mean, the smoke was so bad, I would just cover my mouth and run to the car and run inside. And that whole first weekend, I closed all the windows and I didn't go anywhere. I stayed inside. And I tried to order an air purifier. Everywhere was sold out. I ordered one through Amazon September 11th, and I still have not received it. It keeps getting pushed out further and further, and I ordered vitamins and stuff to keep myself healthy. I still haven't received them, but luckily I had salt lamps, Himalayan salt lamps in every room. So those help absorb some of the toxicity in the air. And I also had a cool mist diffuser that I would run every day and run fans. So, I managed to get past the worst of it. And until late of last week, I think it was Thursday, where the quality, it looked like it was getting better. And then all of a sudden at work, we're getting all congested and my chest was hurting, my throat was hurting, I was exhausted. The quality went back up to 420. Well, we're so lucky now. We had a little bit of rain, the airs have cleared. I don't believe the fires are spreading anymore. And the last 2 days I've been able to go outside. I think the quality went down to 4, and today it was at 9. And just being outside and breathing all this amazing fresh air that we need so much to keep ourselves healthy. I was out there, I was walking in nature, I had the woods in the sun on my body, and just what a blessing that is. And my heart goes out to all the people that have lost their homes. There's thousands and thousands of people that had to be evacuated, and they are coming home to rubble. Their homes have been destroyed, and my heart bleeds and goes out to them. So I count my lucky stars. I feel very fortunate, but let me tell you, that was the closest I've ever been to, the air quality and just being close to having everything destroyed. And when it comes down to it, what is most important to me? I mean, my loved ones, my friends and family. I don't have any of them really here in Portland yet, but I have my animals, and fight hell or high water, I'm going to battle anyone to go back home and get them and make sure they're safe and rescue them. No one's going to keep me from that. So luckily it didn't have to come down to it, but so many people had to face that decision. So as I'm walking outside and just getting back in touch with nature, I see so many people still so afraid of what's going on with this whole coronavirus situation. And I'm walking outside on the trails and people are wearing masks, and they're turning away from me. They're turning away from other people. And CDC had quietly finally come out with the numbers of people actually dying from this virus, from what was it, the 169,000 people, the cases of death. 6% of those were actually directly from the virus itself, and that the other people that died had 2 to 3 other comorbidities. There was something else that was combined with the coronavirus that was causing them to die. So what's coming out lately is this isn't as virulent as what the media is portraying. And I kind of knew this because when all this started, in order to make sense of it all and what was happening, I dove down the rabbit hole. I checked independent resources, scientific papers. I went down. And let me tell you, I had to claw myself back out because for weeks, I woke up, I was so depressed. I didn't want to live in this world. I didn't want to wear a mask. One thing I hate is being lied to. And I clearly could see what was happening with all this propaganda and fear mongering that was being laid upon us. And then the whole riots happened, and there's so much division happening, and there's still people over 120 days later tearing up and vandalizing and burning and destroying our cities. And I went downtown just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like after all this. It is destroyed. Portland is destroyed. It was such a cute, quaint, beautiful city, and there's a whole section where it's boarded up. There's tent encampments everywhere, and it's just feels very hostile. It's so sad for the business owners. And there's encampments, and it turns out lovely Antifa is there, and it's not just a thought, it is real, and it is in our city. I have seen it firsthand. And it's so, so sad. And I am seeing right now, there's a whole, the Black Lives Matter, of course, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, whether you're pink, purple, brown, orange, rainbow colored, who freaking cares? I've been taught not to see color, but what's happening is there's reverse racism going on. There's people are profiling whites. There's wanting to be reparations made. There's victim mentality happening, and there's a lot of entitlement happening. And until we can see that we are responsible for ourselves, it's going to continue. I just watched a really great documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, and it talks about what's happening right now, the division, more divided than ever. And what's happening with a lot of these social media platforms like Facebook or Instagram and Twitter is they're using social media and the algorithms to directly create content that's curated to each one of us to either manipulate us or to create a narrative for us to follow. In this documentary, it shows that the commonly held belief that social media companies sell users' data, it's cast aside. The data is actually used to create a sophisticated psychological profile on us. What they're selling is their ability to manipulate us, or as one interviewee puts it, it's a gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception. It's the only thing for them to make money from, changing what you do, how you think, who you are. Think about it, how creepy it was when you're just mentioning maybe to a friend about a product that you like or some kind of cereal that you like, for example, and the next thing you know, you open up your phone and there's an advertisement for that exact thing that you were talking about. I mean, didn't you freak out the first time that happened? It's like, how do they know? Well, they're listening all the time. How creepy was that the first time that happened? Now it's happening more and more and more. The idea that we can ignore the effects of social media or avoid its influence is dismissed out of hand. We head into classes at Stanford University whose psychological professors teach ways that tech can be used to reprogram the way your brain works until addiction results. And it's even worse for teens. I mean, the suicide rate between 10 and 14-year-olds has tripled in the last few years. And a main source of that is social media. They're comparing themselves. They're valuing themselves according to how many likes they get. There's a whole generation beginning in 1996 that have grown up on social media. They are saying that they're not even dating like they used to. Everyone is at home on their devices. And the people in this documentary, like founders of Facebook and VPs of Instagram and Twitter, don't even allow their children to have a phone, don't allow them to have social media accounts because they know it's like the belly of the beast. They created a beast. They didn't know how it was going to spiral out of control like it has. Social media starts to dig deeper and deeper down into the brainstem and take over kids' sense of self-worth and identity. And on the film, you'll see a sequence where a little beautiful, she's gorgeous, this little preteen poses for selfies, overlaid with filters that distorts her features until she looks like a cartoon character. Graphs showing spiraling teen suicide rates sit next to a teary-eyed speech from Facebook's ex-VP of growth, warning students that the constant desire for likes he's created leaves you more vacant and empty. Also, the AI and algorithms behind social media are also flagged as a terrifying potential destroyer of social cohesion. Their unpredictability sees a former operations manager of Facebook lament that they're controlling us more than they're controlling them. It's very difficult for social media companies to stop them spreading fake news and thus eroding the concept of truth. Now, we've seen a lot of censorship happening across all the platforms, because anything that's going against the narrative right now, and we're seeing a narrative happening, and at least that's what I've discovered and that's what I've seen. But the thing is if you put into Google searching the same thing, everyone's going to see something completely different because they're showing that the algorithms are giving us exactly what they want us to see according to, like, maybe you live in Portland, maybe you live in Florida, like what they want you to see. So literally you could be with your best friend and you're seeing completely different things about the same subject. And it's scary because the algorithms are getting smarter and smarter every day. Today, they're convincing people that the earth is flat, but tomorrow they will be convincing you of something else. And right now, with the elections coming up here in the United States, like, it is more heated than ever. And everyone is so divided. And let me tell you, like, I was never into politics before, and I'm still not defined really with a party, but you betcha I'm going to vote for everything that I have discovered in the last couple months by doing my own independent research, I believe our country and the world is really, really going to be affected by who is in power, who might remain in power. So you betcha places like Facebook are going to take advantage of it. And they are. And there's so much hatred and anger, and it's working. It is creating so much freaking division. Like, I will not scroll through the feed, and I'm going to stay off of it until after the elections, because the last time it became Facebook politics. I wasn't even in politics. Now I'm defined with a side, and I do not want to see all this stuff. So people aren't even letting people you have your own page. God forbid you put something up that you believe in and you don't have trolls shooting it down at every avenue. I had this happen to me recently where I've had a friend for a long time, but on Facebook and social media, she just likes to create fights and have debates. It's your own space. You don't have to, I scroll on so many times. I'm not going to comment on someone else's if I have a difference in opinion. I'm staying off social media and definitely not posting anything political. So we all have our right to our own opinion. I mean, that's democracy, right? That's why this country was created, for our own freedom of thought, which is dangerously close to being taken away from us because there's so much censorship that's happening that is going against the narrative. And thank God people are waking up. And it's like my sister talks about, it's like one has to see it for themselves. You can't wake somebody else up. They have to be willing and able and ready to do it. And like I said, I went down that hole and it became very addicting. So while I didn't really follow the, like I said, mainstream media for a long time, but I was following, people's stories about everything that was happening in downtown Portland from the ground up, like people that were videoing what was happening. And then I follow a lot of independent news resources, but it was also doing what it meant to do. It was leaving me in a state of fear as well. I became addicted to it. So there was a period of time where I would just scroll through all these stories and scroll through all these fears, and it was feeding the fear inside of myself. But I recognized that, and I have to pull myself out of it. And that's the whole thing is with everything that I'm talking about today. And it's just arming yourself with knowledge and empowering yourself and recognizing when you are being manipulated. There's a patent, and I'll put the link in the show notes, where there is some kind of technology where a certain pulse or a certain frequency creates a physiological response in the person viewing it, whether it's on a computer monitor or a TV. There's pulsed images that manipulate the nervous system, and maybe it's embedded in a program or overlaid in a video stream, but it causes excitement within the person. And do you remember the movie Kingsman? How far off we thought that was at the very end, where they just put a frequency in people's phones and they started attacking people and they started attacking each other and created all these violent responses. It's not that far off. That's really all they have to do because they're already doing it. And maybe we're not going to go into these bunkers and have our heads explode, but we are, this technology is just, it's good in a lot of ways. It's not all bad, but there needs to be regulations and some rules in place because it's there and everybody has a phone. So, I mean, there's a lot of great things. I like social media. I do like having the technology and having the phones, but I think there needs to be more regulations in place, and we need to step away from our phones a little more, because how many times have you gone into a restaurant, you see people not even talking to each other, they're all on their phones. I just saw something from the year I was born, 1970s, and it just brought so much nostalgia back, because I feel so fortunate that I was able to grow up without a computer, without a phone. We went outside and played. We were told to come back when the street lights were on. We could go roam around the neighborhood. We were outside. We were active. And now these poor kids nowadays are in front of their tablets or in front of their phones and not going outside and playing like they should. So as I was mentioning, I was walking today and I'm still seeing a lot of people turning away in fear. And As I walk, I like to listen to something inspirational. So I was listening to a podcast today with Coot Blackson, who is one of my favorite all-time inspirational speakers. He's been a transformational coach to me, and he has a podcast called Soul Talk, and he was interviewing Zach Bush, who is a medical doctor, physician, and he specializes in internal medicine and endocrinology, and he is an internationally recognized educator and thought leader on the microbiome as it relates to health, disease, and the food system. He gave a really great interview regarding the viruses, the microbiome, and the bacteria, and the thousands and thousands of other viruses that have been in existence, and how we actually need them for our bodies to stay healthy, and that we're demonizing the virus and we're putting into opposition from what actually built us. Because what happens with our bodies is we take on the information, the info stream from viruses. There's thousands and thousands of them in existence, and they have been from all time. They're floating around in our world. They're in our bodies. And what happens with a virus is our bodies decide to get a genetic update. And our bodies take a sample of what we need and how to defend ourselves from it. So that's why it's so important to build a healthy immune system and create a really good gut biome of good bacteria. Because what happens is when these viruses come around, it decides what bodies need to get a genetic update. That's why he's saying social distancing doesn't work, because, you might have a group of 10 people and it may only choose one or two to give that update to. So if you're staying healthy and you keep your system's microbiome complete, there's no need for an actual inflammatory event. So if you've already got a body that's starting to degenerate because you're not eating right, or you're not healthy, or you're under a lot of stress, it gives the opportunity to trigger a response in the body. And most needing the transformational event, it gives them an opportunity to avoid a heart attack coming down the path, or a cancer. Fever is the best way to defend. So people are afraid of a fever, but it's the best thing that can happen, because what it does is it shuts the body down so it can fight against this virus or whatever disorder is happening. And then what does that do? When you're not feeling good, you have a fever, you don't eat. Fever is the best way to kill cancer, he said, and it's called an inflammatory event in a body that needs to be updated. So this virus, the corona, combined with other environmental and biological factors, is creating, I think there were 9,000 deaths here in the U.S., and that was due to an informative cascade. So what happened when there was this first outbreak is it was in some of the most polluted places in the planet. So there was Wuhan, China, and then there was Italy, northern Italy, where most residents are 10 years older than the rest of the country. And it was in northern Italy. They were 80 years old. Most of them died. There was a lot of environmental stressors that led to a toxic event. So what he's saying is we are ultimately dying from is a toxicological event and not an infectious disease. So as I'm listening to this podcast, Coot asked him, what would you tell people who are sitting in fear, afraid to leave the house, afraid to go anywhere, waiting for a vaccine before doing anything? Zach said, you are a miracle. Right now, your body is mind-boggling. Your ability to heal is directly connected to nature. So if your feet are bare and on the ground and the soil outside, or if you're on the beach, or if you're taking a walk through the woods, or you're running with your kids through the trail system, you are an explosive part of biology of health. Dis-ease is a disruption of that system. If a virus was against you, you would never be here. If you are sitting at home, steeped in alcohol, breathing behind a mask that is heated together with plastics, a polyethylene, you don't want to limit your body taking in things from the environment. Your hope is its true biological reconnection to that nature. The minimum amount of barrier that you can have from you and your environment, immediately you'll be turning your innate immunity. And this is something that I've always known. I love being out in fresh air. I walk through the woods. I breathe in that fresh air, the oxygen that the trees are letting off. I mean, I'm sampling whatever is out there. I want to sample whatever is out there in order for my body to heal itself and keep itself healthy. I've never been afraid of catching something out there. I haven't had a flu in years. I trust my body's ability to heal. And if it doesn't, there was something off to begin with. And it gives it the ability to heal itself, to fend off whatever is out there. And if I do become sick, that's just showing that there is something off in my body. It's taking responsibility for myself. So maybe I'm going to get sick over something as to avoid getting sick over something else or some disease that might be down the road that is really going to be detrimental to my health and longevity. So going back to what Zach said, he said, your hope is the true biological reconnection to that nature. The minimum amount of barrier like mask that we can put between ourselves and nature, being holed up in the home is our salvation. And immediately you'll be turning on your innate immunity. And your immunity only understands you. It only understands I am in the environment around you. If you stay in, it becomes confused. Your system becomes confused. And that I am space, it does all these confusing things, a dysfunction which will happen within the immune system and it fails. So many people have been locked behind the doors. Their body hasn't been sampling everything. They've been locked in fear, using hand sanitizer with this alcohol. God knows what the long-term harmful benefits of that are. Breathing in these fibers from these masks and all this toxicity from your breath going out and whatever bacteria and all this stuff. So get out in nature, breathe some fresh air. That is so important. And what Dr. Fauci has talked about, herd immunity, that we're waiting for antibodies and we're waiting for these vaccines and we get this herd mentality. And he's saying that if we were waiting for that, we would be dead. And that's not how it works. A virus lasts about 2 to 3 days in the body, and then we have a response to it. And if you're waiting, these PCR tests that are happening to detect antibodies, he said you have to actually wait 4 to 6 weeks after that if you think you've been exposed for the antibodies to be there. How can I make the virus go away if the antibodies aren't ever present? There's a lot of misappropriation of information out there and what is happening because of it. A slamming door is sometimes the best path. We need to be co-creative and become that capacity. The virus doesn't go away. We reach an equilibrium. Also, people are being tested for the virus when they've been exposed to someone who might have it. But he said you have to actually wait 4 to 6 weeks after you think you've been exposed for the antibodies to be there if they have it. How can you make the virus go away if the antibodies aren't even present? So using this kind of information is so empowering. How we can keep our bodies from being susceptible to getting sick or getting this disease. We can use this time as an opportunity to make a massive paradigm shift, to return to a new normal that is better than before. And he was saying that if only 4% of the population, 300 to 400 million people, wake up and make these changes, we can do it in a much faster time. But the way we're going, it could take hundreds of thousands of years, and we have to become extinct for those changes to take place. And the most important thing is those that are in their 20s have to make the changes, and those ahead of them need to create the space for them. So we do not believe in the previous paradigm. Modern society has been very good at not giving us a moment. We've become experts at being distracted by the next bit of information to look at. We're not thinking critically, and that we're not thinking creatively. So what are some things that can keep us healthy, that can keep our microbiome healthy, that can avoid disease down the road? And one of the things is this biome. I just started to take it. He was talking about how people got sold on probiotics, but that's only like 3 strains out of thousands. Biome is for gut health, and it's a gut strengthening, brain boosting mineral supplement sourced from 60 million old soil that naturally supports microbiome balance. The active ingredients, terrahydrate, has been shown to support the integrity of tight junctions in the gut lining. And studies have shown that the way to good health is through the gut. And a lot of anti-inflammatory diseases, immune disorders, start with a leaky gut. I mean, I have vitiligo, so I have a leaky gut. So I just started taking it because I've followed him. I've seen the advertisements for this and testimonials for biome, and I am noticing a difference already. So that's something that you can go and check out and look into. And he also said that the 3 things that you can do today is get 7 hugs a day. There's a study that's shown that 7 hugs a day can help with your immunity. Now, I am single. I'm not in a relationship. I don't really have a lot of friends around here, but I do have my animals. I'm like, okay. I do snuggle and I hug them. So that's got to be good for my own health. And also another thing is the sun on your skin. Get outside, get that vitamin D on your body, and then go outside and breathe the biome. Go for a walk in nature. Put your feet in the soil and get integrated into the outdoor environment. So listening to something like this, which I'll put in the show notes, the podcast, is very empowering because it shows us what a miracle our body is and how it's built to would sustain through all these different, there's been many viruses that have been out there. I think this is like the 5th pandemic that we can survive, and our body is always working to protect us. And there's so many different things that we can do to keep ourselves healthy instead of wearing masks, instead of sanitizing our hands. Of course, every flu season, wash your hands, just basic common sense, but get out of the fear mode and empower yourself. And let me tell you, I can't wait till this mask mandate is over with. And I'm hearing that, it might not be until we get a vaccine, and like might not be to mid-spring, or it might not be till summer, and social distancing needs to be in place. I think I'm going to lose my mind because I'm missing people's smiles. Now I can finally recognize people's smiles from the lift of their cheeks and their creases in their eyes. But I'm sorry, I'm about to lose my mind. I don't know how many others of you are about to as well, but let's hope it doesn't get that far because these vaccines aren't going to save us. We have to save ourselves. And let me tell you, I don't do the flu vaccine. I certainly am not doing this COVID vaccine, which they are like rushing into making them available. And the studies have shown a bunch of ill effects. What it is a neurological condition in the spine that is leaving people paralyzed. So let me tell you, the last thing I'm going to do is stick my arm with some cocktail that is being pushed into production to supposedly save the world. And it's got all kinds of horrible things in these vaccines. I'd rather trust in my body to heal itself and keep itself safe. And I will be running off the grid. There's no way in heck I'm going to get that. So not saying I'm anti-vaccine. I'm anti what the F is in this stuff. And I heard it takes about 7 years for a vaccine to be really viable, to actually work. And the thing is, these viruses have never been isolated. You have to isolate a virus in order to create a true vaccine for it. And these trials are not using a placebo against it. So really do your research, read the scientific papers, and really understand what you might be putting in your bodies. If you want to do it, great. But a mandate, that is just obscene for a government to tell us what we can do or not do with our own bodies. And there's a lot of propaganda happening with it. And there was actually a study, I think they put in about $16 million to have these study groups about what messaging would work to get people to take this vaccine. I mean, some of them was guilt, some of it was fear. And I think we have a couple months to really hold strong and not get led down this spiral path of fear and pressure to take this thing. I saw there was a recent poll where it's gone down another 21% for those who will be willing to take a vaccine. And what's great about what's happening now with the coronavirus and these lockdowns and people really paying attention. We're paying attention for the first time about these trials. We're paying attention to what is actually happening with these vaccines, so people can make a more informed decision. And until I really did the independent research, I had no idea. The flu vaccines that were offered, I thought, okay, well, cool. I never took them personally because I hate needles, and the idea of injecting my body with the very thing that I don't want to get was just not something that I was willing to do. But I didn't think there was anything really bad with it until I started really looking into it and seeing what is in these vaccines and all the injuries that have happened. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is such an amazing person to listen to. He's done so much research on this stuff. He's a big advocate after he saw how many children were injured from these vaccines. Not to mention the nanotechnology that is going into this one. And people might think this is crazy, but they're going to be putting microchips in us to monitor our health. They're trying to put like a digital ID, like a health ID. They're already having these applications for the health passport where, they can show whether you've gotten this vaccine or, when your next one is. It's like not going to be a first thing. You're not going to get one vaccine and be done with it. But if that's something that makes you feel safe and protected, go for it. Freedom of choice, right? So like I said in the beginning, there's so much happening around us. And I've discovered so many things that have been going on a long time and that have been set up and put into place and now is being played out in our world. And for the first time, I'm like, God, I'm so glad I won't be around in 20 years if all these things get implemented. But there's so many amazing, wonderful, good people out there in the world, so many good things happening. And instead of being lost in this trajectory of fear and negativity, to really align with that thing. And that's really aligning with the good, aligning with something that is greater, a greater power. The universe has been here for a long time. And I got swept away in all that. And it's hard. I opened my eyes. I've seen, I hear, I know. I lived in Pollyanna land for so long. I didn't want to know about anything. And I was just happy just sitting on my little pad and meditating. But now I know. And what do I do with that information now? And returning to that state of bliss and meditation. So right now it's about aligning with the good that's in the world and really creating a better place for humanity and, being part of the collective and not feeding negativity into the collective. So that's my little work, over these next couple weeks till I return back to it, because it's been a little hard for me to meditate lately. I'm getting back into my practice. I'm distracted, but that's where it is. It's slowing down and creating space and getting in touch with my body and getting in touch with what is present right here and now. What is good? What can I create? There's so many magical gifts in aligning with that. Like really, we can create our own futures. Like what is being played out in our reality in front of us is from our own perception and our own mindset. So I am working at getting back into the flow of things and having some fun and playing and having a lot of lightness and bringing into that collective consciousness, like love, love consciousness from the heart. So that's my practice over the next couple weeks until I return into that, even line. And that's the whole thing with all this, is taking the knowledge and what I know and being able to not be lost in it. So my wish for you is the same thing. Like, take a deep breath, become present, get out into that wonderful world we have. Get lost in nature, breathe the fresh air, slow down. It's going to be okay. And with that, I want to thank you very much for joining me. That was just a bunch of random musings. And, you don't have to agree with everything that I am, saying here. And it's just, my own perspective. And it's the own things that I have found through, my own work in trying to understand everything. And my suggestion to you is stay away from a lot of the mainstream media and do your own independent research. And people like Zach Bush and Kurt Blackson, they're specialists in their fields. And find things that empower you and that really shows you what a walking miracle you really are. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you on the next one. And what a miracle it is to be alive and to join each other, to unite, because we really need each other to survive as a species. And with that, I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing week and go forth, bring love, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.